The musty scent of old papers and dust hung in the air as I knelt before the antique safe, the only tangible possession Mom left behind after the house was sold to pay off debts. With trembling hands, I entered the code from her battered journal and heard the tumblers click open, revealing the truth that would shatter my world forever. Stacks of envelopes and documents spilled out, each one a heavy, damning weight in my hands. Photos of a strange woman and children I didn't recognize. Bank statements detailing exorbitant withdrawals and transfers to offshore accounts. It was all there, the undeniable proof of my father's betrayal. No, it can't be, I whispered, fingers tightening around the papers until the corners crumpled. Maya squeezed my shoulder, eyes wide with disbelief. Sloan, what is all this? The words caught in my throat as reality slammed into me like a freight train. My dad's constant business trips and excuses for working late, it was all an elaborate facade concealing his double life while he drained our family's assets. As I rifled through the documents, fury blazed within me, burning away any remaining doubt. He had been lying to us for decades, while living it up with some mistress and their children, leaving us in poverty when Mom got sick. That bass! Maya's curse was cut off by the crinkling of an aged envelope tucked beneath the pile. Mom's elegant handwriting adorned the front, the last words she left for me before cancer stole her voice forever. My dearest Sloan, if you're reading this, it means the worst has happened. I tore it open with shaking hands and read the letter, hot tears streaking my face. It contained all Mom's suspicions about Dad's shady activities, her desperate pleas to uncover the truth and protect what little we had left from his greed. He ruined everything. I choked out, slammed the letter to the floor. Let him have his precious money and perfect second family. I'm going to take back what he stole from us and Mom. The fire of righteous vengeance burned in my chest, fueling a determination that wouldn't be extinguished until Warren Harper paid the price for his unforgivable sins. Maya met my blazing gaze, her expression hardening with grim resolution. What do you need me to do? Rising to my feet, I straightened my shoulders and spoke in a voice tempered by the injustice clawing at my soul. First, we need to find out everything we can about Dad's secret life. Bank accounts, property, all of it. We're going to bleed him dry, just like he did to us. I would stop at nothing to dismantle the very foundation of lies he built his life upon. If taking away his wealth and status was the only way to hurt him, that's exactly what I would do. Warren Harper wanted to play make-believe as a doting husband and father? Fine. I would be the one to administer a devastating wake-up call, using his own damning evidence against him. Gathering the documents into a box, I felt the weight of Dad's sins like an anvil. But they would be weapons in my quest to settle the score and honor Mom's dying plea for justice. No matter what it took, I would have my retribution, even if it meant destroying him and the life he so selfishly stole from our family. The diner's amber lighting cast somber shadows across Derek Thompson's weathered face as he flipped through the documents I had gathered. A hushed silence hung between us, punctuated only by the clink of drained coffee mugs. This is some heavy stuff, he finally said, leaning back in the vinyl booth. Your old man's been running quite the con. I nodded, jaw clenched, and I intend to make him pay for every lawn he fed us. Derek's eyes narrowed at my steely tone. As a veteran private investigator, he had seen his fair share of messy domestic cases, but there was an intensity in my gaze that gave him pause. Listen, Sloan, getting tangled up in this revenge scheme could get real ugly. You sure you want to go down that road? He took everything from us, I snapped, slamming my palm on the table. Embers of Mom's dying anguish flared within me. That bastard bled my mother dry to fund his fairy tale family, letting her waste away without a penny for treatment. Derek held up a placating hand, unfazed by my outburst. I get the desire for payback, believe me, but going nuclear on this won't bring your mom back. My fingers dug into the tabletop, desperation burning in my chest. Then what choice do I have? Just let him live his perfect life after betraying us like that? Sorrow flickered across the PI's face as our eyes met in an intense standoff. Finally, he sighed, raking a hand through his thinning hair. All right, kid, I'll help you nail this scumbag to the wall, but we play this smart. No cowboy stunts or sending out any unverified info, got it? Relief washed over me. With Derek's expertise, I could unearth every last secret and ensure Warren's carefully constructed facade crumbled to dust. A faint smile played across my lips. Deal. So where do we start? Over the following weeks, Derek and I pored over every shred of evidence, identifying bank accounts, properties, and shell companies, all meticulously hidden by my father's intricate money trail. With each discovery, the full scope of his deception became more staggering. I seethed as photos of the younger, dark-haired woman plastered on vacation snapshots filled my screen. Her delighted smile beside my father's happy countenance was like a viper's strike to my heart. "That's Michelle Sanders," Derek said gruffly. "A former employee turned live-in mistress by the looks of it." White-hot rage licked at my nerves as I studied the images of her and the two children, my vile half-siblings born from my dad's ultimate betrayal. Aching memories of Mom's endless sacrifices to keep our small family afloat battered my mind like a relentless gale. How could he? My voice trembled with scarcely restrained fury. A heavy hand squeezed my shoulder, jerking me from my spiral of anguish. Derek's voice rumbled with firm insistence. "We're gonna crucify this piece of work, Sloan, I promise you that. But you've got to keep your head in the game, you hear?" Steadying my ragged breaths, I gave a terse nod. He was right. Losing myself to rage now would only sabotage my mission. I steadied my resolve, determined to unleash a cold, calculated vengeance. Every uncovered asset, every financial maneuver linked to Michelle and her brats, it would all become the noose to hang Warren Harper with his own greed. Tears burned at my eyes, this time ignited by the fire of retribution rather than sorrow. One way or another, he would answer for his sins against our family. I would make certain of it. The address burned in my mind like a brand, the home my father had bought with the spoils of his betrayal. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the steering wheel, barely registering Derek's concerned glances. "You sure about this, Sloan? Getting up close and personal with the other family is playing with fire." I swallowed hard, anger and disgust churning in my gut. I need to see it for myself, to look into the eyes of the lives he chose over us. Derek grunted, recognizing the steely determination in my voice. We pulled up to the stately two-story colonial, its pristine exterior mocking the dysfunction lurking within. My breath caught as Michelle exited the front door, ushering two young children into a spotless SUV. Though years younger than Mom with expensive highlights, her pastel sundress and manicured nails showcased a clear life of comfort and luxury, everything my mother was denied. Fury seared through me at the injustice. This was the woman who had seduced my father, the homewrecker who enabled his depravity without a second thought for his other family's well-being. Derek squeezed my arm, pulling me from my rage-filled reverie. "Easy there, kiddo. Stay frosty." Nodding tersely, I willed my emotions into an icy reserve as Michelle climbed into the driver's seat. Before the engine could turn over, a teenage boy emerged from the house, my half-brother Lucas. I instinctively shrank lower in the seat, drinking in every detail of the stranger who shared my DNA. Short, sandy hair cut into a fashionable style framed his youthful features as he adjusted the strap of his backpack with a casual confidence. In that moment, envy and resentment warred within me. While I had spent my adolescence going without, shuffling between part-time jobs to pay the bills, Lucas Harper strode to his awaiting chariot without a care beyond which shirt to pick out that morning. My nails dug crescents into my palms, a silent scream building in my throat. I wanted to storm that picture-perfect sanctuary and unleash every ounce of fury simmering beneath the surface. But I didn't. Derek's stern coaching echoed in my mind. Any rash outburst now could sabotage months of effort. I was the wronged party, yes, but also the one with control over when and how this twisted saga would climax. So I kept my anger banked, watching impassively as the SUV backed out and disappeared down the suburban street, carrying my worst enemy and his twisted beloved family. As we trailed after them, the knot of emotions in my chest crystallized into a frigid clarity. I could wait, had been waiting over 2 decades for this moment. And when the time was perfect, when every salacious detail had been pried open like a wound, the Harpers would reap the destruction they deserved. No more delays, no more secrets, just the burden of their sins laid bare. That night, spread across the battered coffee table of my ramshackle apartment, photos and dossiers chronicling Warren's dual lives were arranged in an intricate mosaic of deception. Hollow-eyed and weary, I nonetheless studied them with rapt intensity, while Maya nursed a glass of cheap white wine beside me. "So what now?" she asked quietly, wary of disturbing my focus. A ghost of a smile played across my lips as I traced the image of Warren's arm slung casually around Michelle's shoulders. "Now we make our next move. It's time the mistress and her brats got a proper introduction." The sleek office of the Herald Tribune loomed before me, its imposing glass facade a stark contrast to the burning determination in my chest. This was it, the first salvo in my carefully planned offensive against Warren Harper's deceitful empire. Maya shifted nervously beside me, clutching the hefty manila envelope like a lifeline. "You're sure about this? Leaking stuff to the media could make this situation blow up fast." I shot her a steely glance, my resolve immovable. "That's exactly what I want. No more shadows to slither in, no more hiding his vile secrets." Squaring my shoulders, I strode towards the gleaming entrance with single-minded focus. It's time for the truth to see the light. The rhythmic clack of my heels echoed through the lobby as I approached the front desk. A bored-looking intern glanced up from his phone with a half-hearted greeting that died on his lips at my glacial expression. "I need to speak with your investigative reporters. Immediately." It wasn't a request. Any timidness he may have felt evaporated as he took in my stern countenance. Stammering an obligatory, "One moment," the hapless intern scurried towards the editorial bank of offices. Minutes later, a tanned, immaculately dressed woman with the unmistakable air of a veteran journalist strode towards us. Sharp brown eyes appraised me with the calculating gaze of a hunter scenting its prey. "Amelia Knowles," she said by way of introduction, extending a hand. "I'm the Herald Tribune's senior editor. My colleague mentioned you have something that might pique our investigative team's interest." A faint smile played across my lips as we shook. "You could say that." The next hour was a dizzying tempest as Maya and I systematically unveiled the evidence we'd compiled. Tax records, property deeds, salacious photos, all intricately laying bare the sordid details of Warren's double life. My voice was an unwavering cadence as I spelled out every lurid detail, from his embezzlement and fraud to the calculated betrayal of his wife and child. Throughout the debriefing, Amelia's expression remained infuriatingly impassive as she scrutinized the documentation with a critical eye. When I finally fell silent, the rapid cadence of my heartbeat thundered in my ears like wardens awaiting the final reckoning. A heavy exhale shattered the tension as the reporter lifted her gaze, eyes glinting with the faintest hint of admiration. "This is huge. Frankly, I'm amazed you were able to compile all of this without getting caught." Her ruby lips quirked in a wry smirk. "The depths this poor bastard's going to be raked over the coals if even half of this pans out." She trailed off, gaze shifting speculatively back to me. "I have to ask, what's your stake in all this? You're clearly not just some concerned citizen." My jaw clenched. The embers of fury banked low in my core, flaring white-hot as I met her stare unflinchingly. "Warren Harper is my father," I said, each word biting and precise. "That evidence details how he defrauded my family, robbed us of our life savings, and lived a double life as his 6 side pieces sugar daddy while my mother wasted away." Amelia's brows arched in surprise, but I pressed on, savoring the exquisite anguish beginning to claw at my soul. "He's about to learn that no secret, no matter how deeply buried, stays hidden forever." My gaze bored into her with an intensity that would brook no argument. "I want you to crucify the bastard in the court of public opinion, make him a pariah so reviled that the world spits on his name." Despite her seasoned composure, the editor's throat bobbed in a slight gulp as the gravity of my request settled over her. After a tense heartbeat, she gave a solemn nod. "Consider it done." As Maya and I strode from that office, I could already picture the headlines: "Family Man's Sordid Double Life Exposed." But this was merely the opening salvo, the first rift in the dam that would soon burst under the weight of Warren's sins and leave his pathetic existence in ruins. The game was afoot, and I was just getting started. The rhythmic clicking of my heels reverberated through the polished lobby as I strode towards the opulent venue. Sleek marble tiles glistened under crystal chandeliers that cast a warm glow over impeccably dressed attendees, mingling with sparkling flutes of champagne. In another life, this would have been my world too, a privileged daughter with the keys to every stratum of high society. But that legacy had been tarnished long ago by Warren's insidious deception. Scanning the crowd with a calculated intensity, I spotted my target near the center of the throng. His tailored Tom Ford suit radiated an unearned confidence befitting an elder statesman, a veneer of respectability armoring him against the avalanche I was about to unleash. For nearly a month since our damning exposé, Warren had weathered the public firestorm with the arrogant nonchalance of a man who believed himself bulletproof. His canned, pre-written statements denied all wrongdoing, dismissing the allegations as a smear campaign from jealous rivals. The slick bravado was almost admirable, if he wasn't such a depraved, lying sack of excrement. Tonight he would realize the folly of underestimating me. The game was entering its final throes. My gaze slid over the crowd, instantly locking onto Lucas standing alone near the bar with a glass of sparkling water. Despite our blood connection, seeing his youthful mien fill with bewildered hurt each time the scandal resurfaced carved guilt into the pit of my stomach. He was the one member of the Harper clan whose pain I regretted inflicting, the accidental civilian casualty swept up in a war not of his making. No. Stamping down the errant stab of sympathy, I adjusted the plunging neckline of my black evening gown and mustered every ounce of cold, seething hatred, honing it into a frozen point focused solely on the man responsible for our collective suffering. Time to give St. Warren his long-overdue epiphany. Well, if it isn't the man of the hour himself. I strode directly into his orbit, my voice dripping with saccharine derision. The sycophantic cluster of high rollers and social elites surrounding him turned in surprise, parting as my unrelenting steps sliced through the ring. His hawkish visage flinched reflexively at my sudden intrusion, but was swiftly concealed beneath his impeccably polished mask of hubris. Warren extended his arms in an exaggerated greeting, perfectly tailored for the public tableau. "Sloane, my dear darling daughter, what a surprise!" His gaze narrowed fractionally, piercing in a way that would make weaker spines shiver. "To what do I owe the pleasure on this fine evening?" I flashed him a toothy smile dripping with acidic saccharine. "Oh, no pleasure needed, Daddy dear. Just a friendly warning that your delightfully chaotic harem-bred demise is imminent." His expression flickered for the briefest instant. Good, my barb found its mark. Dropping the cloying veneer, I leaned in with a low growl. "That limp PR spin isn't going to cut it much longer, old man. Soon the entire world will know the truth about your pathetic double life and how you pillaged and destroyed everything in your path to fund your whores and bastard spawn." "Sloane, that's enough," came a urgent, familiar voice. Lucas appeared at my side, face tight with reproachful concern. A part of me knew venting my wrath in so public a manner was risky. But in that moment, denying myself the exquisite release of finally unleashing the hatred simmering for decades was impossible. "No, it's not nearly enough," I shot back with vicious glee. "Not until he understands an ounce of the agony we suffered while he played patriarch to his pretty little replacement family." Warren's lips peeled back in an ugly sneer. "I've warned you about making a scene, girl." "Or what?" I laughed bitterly. "Going to cut me off from the inheritance you already stole? Let me save you the trouble and cut out the cancerous part of my life for good." I punctuated the final shout with a sharp shove to Warren's chest, his face contorting in shock as he momentarily lost his balance. Lucas instinctively reached out to steady his father, but a glare sent the wounded teen recoiling. Regaining his footing, my father's gaze bored into me with icy menace. For an infinite second, we were suspended in a Mexican standoff of warring fury, silent spectators forgotten in the vacuum of our private Armageddon. "We're not finished, Sloane," he hissed with quiet, paternal finality. "Not by a long shot." Spinning on his heel, Warren stormed off through the gawking throngs, trailed by his entourage of caretakers and enablers. Lucas lingered for a heartbeat, torn, before reluctantly trailing behind. My chest heaved with exertion and exhilaration. The line had been crossed. There was no going back from the bridge I'd burnt this night. Weaving through the stunned onlookers, I felt curiously liberated, unshackled from the emotional chains that had weighed me down for far too long. let the final act commence. There would be no mercy, no respite, until one of us lay destroyed, and the other stood reborn from the ashes, free at last from this endless cycle of betrayal and deception. No matter what it took, whatever collateral damage must be absorbed or moral lines blurred, I would emerge the victor. The Harper name deserved to be scoured from existence after inflicting such grievous wounds. I swore it on my mother's eternal soul. The pulsating throb of bass resonated from the speakers as Derek scrutinized the shadowed figures on the monitor. From our concealed vantage point across the street, the high-definition cameras painted a crystal-clear portrait of activity unfolding within Warren's city penthouse. "This is our shot," I murmured, fingers digging into the plush armrests with white-knuckled intensity, his entire rotten empire about to come crashing down. For weeks, we had meticulously sliced through his labyrinthine network of shell corporations and offshore accounts, using the levers provided by the media circus his scandals had unleashed. Subpoenaed records exposed the staggering depths of his perfidy, decades of embezzlement, corporate fraud, and money laundering, all funneled into maintaining his indulgent double life. Each revelation had been another masterful stroke, slowly suffocating his resources until even his most staunch legal mercenaries began jumping ship. And now, with authorities closing in to execute a raft of arrest warrants, the ultimate checkmate was finally upon us. Derek hummed grimly, years of operational experience tempering any premature sense of victory. "Don't celebrate yet, Sloan. This whole situation's a powder keg. One wrong spark and it all goes up in flames." The crackle of a police radio shattered the tension as a voice barked coordinates in clipped, precise tones. My gut clenched reflexively. It was time. Moving in eerie lockstep, several blacked-out SUVs slid up to the curb as SWAT operatives swarmed the penthouse lobby's main entrance in coordinated stacks. Instinctively, I craned forward to make out the indistinct figures through the high-powered zoom lens. Then all hell broke loose. An ear-splitting crash reverberated as a side door shattered under a hail of gunfire. Trailing smoke and glass, Warren exploded onto the street at a dead sprint, an unconscious Lucas slung over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. Another man, Michelle's lanky frame unmistakable, barreled after them, firing wildly over his shoulder. Chaos erupted as SWAT teams instantly swarmed all potential exits, their commanding officers barking frantic orders into radios as the sleek sedans tore off down the avenue. "They're Rabbit, the hostages!" Derek roared, vaulting over me to wrench open the van's side door. "Hurry, we have to follow them!" My heart thundered in my ears as I scrambled after him, suffocating guilt welling up unbidden. This was never supposed to involve innocence. As much as I despised the very air Lucas breathed, he didn't deserve to be terrorized by the monster masquerading as his father. A sonic boom of crunching metal shattered my spiraling thoughts as we careened around a corner just in time to see one of the SUVs T-boned by an armored SWAT truck in a hail of sparks and twisted steel. Through the billowing smoke of airbags, a shape shambled free. Warren gripping Lucas's limp form tightly in front of him, M9 pistol pressed against the teenager's skull. "Don't come any closer." His gravelly howl cut through the mayhem like a banshee's scream. Nose streaming blood, Warren's panicked eyes whipped around the cordon of combat-ready operatives now encircling him in slowly tightening rings. Seized by impulse, I shoved Derek aside and flung open the van's rear doors. Storming through the potential crossfire with reckless abandon, my strides echoed with apocalyptic finality in the eerie, smoke-shrouded stillness. The standoff froze as all eyes locked onto my inexorable advance. Even under the amber glow of emergency strobes, Warren's face paled to an otherworldly pallor. "Sloan, what are you doing?" The hand gripping Lucas trembled, belying the desperate shriek welling within him. "Have you lost your goddamned me?" "Enough!" My bellow was a thunderclap that cleaved through the chaos, the weight of months, years of pent-up emotions blazing with the force of a supernova. Coming to a halt mere feet from the standoff, my stare bored into the wretched husk of the man who had once claimed to be my father. "Look at you," I said with quiet, acidic disdain. The great Warren Harper, brought so low by his own gluttony and perversion, a truly fitting requiem for one so invested in defilement of family. Emboldened by my mocking reproach, 2 SWAT operatives crept forward in a measured pincer, weapons leveled with surgical precision. With a guttural roar of impotent fury, Warren savagely swung Lucas in front of him once more, the muzzle now digging brutally into the teen's sweat-soaked scalp. "Stay back! I swear to God I'll do it! I'll blow his goddamn brains out right here!" The words ricocheted through the vacant air, a final desperate bid by a rat backed into an inescapable corner. I couldn't help the contemptuous bark of laughter that burst forth. "Of course you would," I spat. "What's one more broken vow after a lifetime of moral bankruptcy, eh, Daddy dearest?" My unflinching disdain seemed to rob him of breath, his beady eyes bulging in impotent rage. Slowly, I took one measured step forward, then another, each footfall amplifying the deafening silence like a judge's gavel. "Do it," I growled. "Pull that trigger and totally destroy the facade of a man you never truly were. Let everyone here bear witness that the great Warren Harper is nothing more than a sadistic, abusive coward who would gas his own innocent child to save his worthless hide." My voice dropped to a mocking whisper, daring him to shatter whatever vestiges of humanity still flickered within his shriveled soul. "Do it." For an agonizing eternity, the world hung suspended as the two of us locked in a silent, psychic duel of wills. I saw the internal war warring across his face, an existential madness seizing him as every pillar supporting the grandiose delusions fueling his existence crumbled to ash. Then, like a puppet severed from its strings, the weapon clattered to the ground as our tortured progeny collapsed into his arms, sobbing in stunned bewilderment and relief. Without another word, I watched in grim triumph as armed forces swarmed both, ripping father from son, encasing the elder Harper in cold, unforgiving steel restraints. My fists clenched until nails bit into calloused palms, reveling in this long-awaited culmination. There would be no spectacular fireworks, no blinding supernova to top our saga, only the profoundly anticlimactic image of a broken shell of a human being dragged off into the cold night. Just like that, the Ouroboros consuming our bloodline was severed forever. As Derek gently ushered Lucas to our idling van, I allowed one fleeting glance at the pitiful wretch who had damned us all to this cosmic cruelty. He met my gaze for the fraction of a second, and in his dead, sunken eyes, I saw the briefest flicker of understanding. The harsh fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows across Warren's face as I entered the sterile visitation room. Even in his rumpled prison fatigues, the air of aristocratic disdain clung to him like a bad stench. For a long moment, he simply stared at me through the reinforced glass partition separating us, unblinking, studying me with the same cold calculation I remembered from my youth. I met his gaze unflinchingly, refusing to be the first to break the tense silence. Let him soak in the reality of his new existence, brought low and caged like the rabid animal he truly was. Finally, a sneer curled his lip as he leaned forward with mocking condescension. Well, the prodigal daughter deigns to visit her incarcerated father. To what do I owe this?" His eyes raked over me with undisguised contempt. "Honor?" "Can it, Warren?" I said flatly. Using his first name felt like forcing down a mouthful of glass shards, but I'd be damned if I validated his sense of patriarchal entitlement any longer. We both know I'm not here for some Hallmark reunion. A flicker of surprise broke through his smug facade as I slid a bulging manila envelope through the document slot before taking a seat. "What's this?" he demanded, snatching it up and rifling through the sheaf of papers with narrowed eyes. "Everything you're going to sign over to me," I stated, leaning back in the plasteel chair. "Bank accounts, property deeds, overseas assets, the full Irving family inheritance you cheated my mother out of." His brows furrowed in confusion for a heartbeat, analyzing every loophole and angle like a master tactician. But as the enormity of the demand sank in, his head slowly lifted, mouth agape in stunned offense. "You ungrateful little," Warren exploded, spittle flecking the glass. "After everything your whore mother put me through, you think you get to bleed me for?" "I'd tread very carefully with your next words if I were you," I said in a low, dangerous tone. Despite the barrier between us, every muscle in my body tensed as if bracing for a physical confrontation. "Because I swear on my life, if you sully Mom's memory again, I'll make sure your remaining years in this shithole are spent in solitary lockdown with the gangbangers and skinheads." The overt threat hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. For a long, tense moment, I could actually see Warren's mind churning, wrestling with the instinct to lash out as he had so often to maintain his domineering control. Finally, some deeper, baser self-preservation instinct seemed to kick in. He drew in a long, shuddering breath through flared nostrils and leaned back, some of the blustery defiance seeping out of his wiry frame. "You just couldn't let it go, could you?" he murmured, narrowed eyes boring into me. "No matter how much I tried to distance myself from your nonsense, you just had to keep picking at that scab." A flicker of that patented wounded indignation armored his features once more, as though I were the petulant child making unreasonable demands. After all I sacrificed. "Don't," I cut him off with a curt slash of my hand. The reminder of his masterful gaslighting sparked a searing flare of rage in my chest. "Don't you dare play the martyr with me again. Not after what you put Mom through. Not after leaving us to rot in squalor while you built another family." I was shaking now, every ounce of grief and torment I'd endured crashing over me in waves of fury. Gripping the table's edge, I leaned in with bared teeth. "Sign it all over, you remorseless son of a bitch. Every last damn cent that should have gone to giving Mom a comfortable life while she suffered. I want it all as restitution for the lifetime of lies and anguish you inflicted on us." Warren opened his mouth, doubtless to spew more indignant rationalizations, but after meeting my blazing stare, whatever retort he had died on his lips, for a solitary instant, I saw something shift behind his eyes, a flicker of self-awareness at the profound ugliness of his life's path. Without a word, he reached for the pen and began mechanically signing each page, every flourished scrawl, feeling like a death knell for the facade he'd spent decades constructing. As the very last signature dried, he slid the stack towards me with a trembling hand, anger and resignation etched into the deep crevasses of his face. "There," he rasped. "You've salted the earth of my entire existence for a few million in blood money. Satisfied, you miserable, vindictive harpy?" My lip curled in one final snarl of defiant contempt. "Believe me, old man, if I could reduce you to living in a cardboard box under an overpass, I would, but this is the next best thing." Snatching up the documents, I pivoted on my heel and stormed from that wretched room without a backward glance. Let the cretinous bastard wallow in the ruination of all his efforts. As far as I was concerned, he had ceased to exist as anything more than a cautionary tale for the consequences of unchecked deception. The clouds had finally parted, the shackles of that sordid family legacy falling away to leave me unshackled and reborn. 6 months later, the muggy summer air clung like a damp shroud as I stepped from the sleek town car. Pausing on the freshly poured concrete path, I cast a sweeping gaze across the pristine grounds, taking in every inch of the newly renovated estate. What had once been a monument to excess and depravity was now a sanctuary, a living memorial to the damage wrought by greed and betrayal. My mouth curved in a small, satisfied smile. "Not bad, huh?" Maya's voice drifted over my shoulder as she emerged from the back seat, squinting against the midday glare. I felt her eyes studying me with open admiration. "I still can't believe you pulled all this off, Sloane. Turning that decrepit palace into, well, this." She whistled lowly, shaking her head. "Your mom would be damn proud." A flicker of wistfulness shadowed my features as I trailed a fingertip along the sun-warmed sandstone exterior. That's the idea, to create something good and just from the ashes of so much ugliness. The anguished memories of those final, bitter years battling Warren's sadistic narcissism threatened to swell up like a rogue wave. But the calm, meditative trickle of the koi pond nearby helped keep them at bay, a reminder that this place was so much more than just an extravagant manor. No, Avalon Springs was intended to be a true refuge, as much for the soul as the body. A pastoral estate dedicated to housing and rehabilitating families devastated by the same treacheries my own had endured. My hand instinctively drifted to the pendant of the Ouroboros encircling my neck, an emblem of the cycle of rebirth and renewal that I had finally broken with my father's downfall. The sick spiral of madness gripping our bloodline was severed the day I claimed what was rightfully ours. Now it was time to begin anew, to forge a legacy that would uplift rather than destroy. You know, when you first came to me ranting about taking your dad down, I never expected this level of symbolism. Maya's teasing lilt fractured my pensive reverie. Has this whole Buddha-esque thing been your game plan all along? Shooting her a sidelong smirk, I started down the tree-lined path towards the heavy oak doors, their rich stain gleaming proudly in the sunlight. Only someone as pragmatic as you would complain about getting gifted a mansion, Renzi. Hey, I'm not complaining, she protested with a laugh, easily falling into step beside me. Just stating facts. You went from woman scorn to weird cult leader vibes. I shoved her playfully. Oh, shut up, you worked just as hard on this place as I did. Well, duh, one of us needed to keep you from going full Nietzsche Übermensch. Sloane? The shocked voice jolted us both into silence as a figure emerged from the shadows of the colonnade up ahead. Lucas paused mid-stride, eyes wide with disbelieving recognition. For several beats, a weighty stillness suffocated the air between us, laden with the emotional shrapnel left in his father's wake. It had been over half a year since I'd last seen my estranged half-brother in the aftermath of the SWAT raid implosion. Despite my initial instinct to feel threatened by his unexpected presence, something in his raw, open expression disarmed me. Hey, I managed at last, offering him a tentative nod. Nice to see you up and about. A strained, watery chuckle escaped Lucas's lips as he swiped an errant hand across his eyes. Yeah, you too. We drifted closer, the air rife with unspoken questions and revelations neither of us seemed willing to broach first. Until, with a visible steadying of resolve, Lucas broke the standoff. Look, I know things got crazy towards the end there, with my dad and, well, everything. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. I'm not going to pretend I understand even half of what was going on, but I wanted to thank you for, keeping me out of it as best you could. Something warm and unfamiliar blossomed in my chest at his earnest gratitude. Through the roller coaster of vendettas and personal catharsis, I had nearly forgotten Lucas's innocence amidst the collateral fallout. You didn't deserve to get caught up in that shitstorm, I said gruffly, quirking a rueful smile. No kid should have to suffer for their parents' sins. He regarded me steadily, as if searching for any lingering hints of malice or deception he'd come to associate with our paternal lineage. At last, seeming to detect sincerity, Lucas nodded. Sounds like you took that lesson to heart with this place. He swept an appraising glance over the tranquil grounds and stately edifice. What's the deal? Some kind of support center? Pride swelled within me as I outlined my vision for Avalon Springs, a long-term residence and vocational training program for families devastated by financial crimes. How I aimed to provide a fresh start free from the demons of their pasts, while also equipping them with the tools to rebuild stable, self-sufficient lives. It's a noble pursuit, Lucas said at last, clear-eyed admiration flickering over his features. Honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head, creating something good to counter all the bad our dad unleashed on the world. A fragile understanding seemed to blossom between us in that moment. For the first time, I saw him as more than just a reminder of Warren's perfidy. A kindred spirit, fueled by the gift of perspective to break the cycles that had nearly destroyed us both. You know, I said impulsively, studying him with a rekindled sense of purpose, this place is gonna need all the help it can get staying afloat. Don't suppose you'd be interested in getting involved? Could use an extra set of hands around here. The surprise registered plainly on Lucas's face as the weight of my offer sank in. But it was soon replaced by a bright, boyish grin that erased years of turmoil in an instant. You know what? I think I'd like that, he replied with a firm nod of acceptance. For the first time in a long while, I felt the lingering shards of resentment and bitterness towards him dissolve away, displaced by the tentative stirrings of a bond forged in the ashes of our fractured upbringing. As Maya and I led Lucas through the ornate double doors into Avalon's embrace, I felt a profound sense of lightness, of closure. This was it, the start of a new chapter, unshackled from the burdens of the past and burning with the possibility of a hard-won redemption. Though the road here had been brutal beyond measure, stripping me down to the bones, at last I felt reborn, weightless, free to soar towards the horizons of a life truly worth living.